Shalom Aleichem and welcome to Machem Leira Online Smicha. We know Chazal say that the Yidden are divided into three groups, Kehnim, Levim, and Yisraelim. And the Torah is also Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, Ksuvim. And the famous Gemara, and the Torah was given to us in the third month. The Yarcha Tlisoi, through the Tlisoi, through Moshe Rabbeinu, who is number three. So the number three is a significant number, and in Klal Yisrael, the way it's split up between Kehnim, Levim, and Yisraelim. So today we'll talk a little about the specialty of the Kohen, and what responsibilities and what chiyuvim are there for the Kohen or towards the Kohen. Now, by a Kohen, we know there are two levels in the Kohen. There's the Kohen Hedyot, there's the average Kohen, the regular Kohen, or his Hedyot might mean the simple Kohen. And then there's the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. The high priest has extra stringency, extra halachas that apply to him. Now, this Kohen, whoever is a Kohen, meaning he's born to a family, a father and mother who gave birth, who the father was a Kohen, there's no two ways about it. You can't undo your kahuna and say, you know what, I won't work and I won't do my responsibilities and don't give me the rewards. The Rambam in Hilchas Bikurim, Perik Aleph, Halacha Aleph, says if somebody doesn't do what he's supposed to, he won't get the rewards. But he can't undo what his response. He'll be punished for not doing what he's supposed to do. So what are from the mitzvahs of the Kohanim that we know? We know that the Kohen has a special mitzvah of Birchas Kohanim, that he has a mitzvah to bless Klal Yisrael, and there's different times when it's done. The time of the Beis Hamikdash, the time today. Is it always or only on Yom Tov? Those are questions about the Kohen. Then the mitzvah of the Kohen is the mitzvah of Pidyon Aben, where you redeem your firstborn child and you buy him off the Kohen. In the times of the Beis Hamikdash, the Kohen were especially honored because they had many jobs in the Beis Hamikdash, starting from the Shmira, from the small parts of the guarding of the Beis Hamikdash was placed upon them, mostly more on the Levim. But some parts, even the Kohanim did the guarding, but primarily the Avodah in the Beis Hamikdash, everything that was done in the Beis Hamikdash was done through Kohanim. The Ketores was done through the Kohanim, and we know that the Soita, the parsha of the Soita, when they had to do that challenging test, they had to be done by Kohanim. It says in Tosefta that the Kohanim are very special in many ways. The Gemara says Kohanim are zrizim, are swift. They do things quickly, they do things right, and they don't make too many mistakes. And because also of this, and because of their specialty of honor, it was important to put in Bezdin, in the Bezdin Hagadol, in the Sanhedrin Gedolah, there was a mitzvah to put Kohanim v'Levim, to make sure there are some Kohanim and Levim on it. The pasuk says that the Kohen Kedoshim Yiyu Le'Lekehem, they have to be holy because of their primary job of being dedicated to the Beis Hamikdash and dedicated to more spiritual things. They have to make sure they stay holy. So how do they stay holy? Primarily in two ways. First of all, a Kohen has his limitations, who he's allowed to marry. A Kohen Gadol has even one more level. But let's talk about a regular Kohen. Who is a Kohen not allowed to marry? A Grusha. A Kohen is not allowed to marry a woman who is divorced. A Zaina, somebody who had non-kosher relationship, a prostitute or whatever. And a Chalala is somebody, a lady who was born from Isuri Kuhuna. So a Kohen has to have it has a limited high lineage of a person who he can marry, because there has to be more kedusha. And we also know that the Kohen has to refrain from many tumah, many things of tumah that a regular Yisrael is allowed to. We're going to speak about some questions pertaining that. It's brought that a Kohen Baal Mum, if he has a blemish, and if the blemish is an obvious one that's noticeable, he's possible to do the Avodah, and certain Baal Mum, he's possible to do Birchas Kohanim even. And the Chinuch explains, after all, what do you want? Is it his fault? So the Chinuch actually says things, being that noticeable blemishes have an effect on people watching it, people watching him. So anybody who has that type of obvious thing that will cause people to talk or misbehave or whatever, he loses track from this, and he becomes disqualified, which leads to a interesting shaila. It is brought that in the Beis Hamikdash, the kohanim have to look proper, right? They have their chiyuvim, what they have to be like. So there is a discussion whether the kohanim in the Beis Hamikdash were allowed to wear long payas. Why? Because it says a kohen is not allowed to be parua rosh, having long hair, and perhaps long payas would be disqualifying him as not proper dress code for a kohen. Rabbi Yoshev Takapas says that. Rabbi Yoshev in Sefer Kav Noki Siman Tafrei Tzadik Aleph says that it looks like the long payas wasn't allowed for a kohen in the Beis Hamikdash. However, others challenge it by saying they're not wearing a long payas because they don't want to take a haircut. They want to have afro. They're not doing it because they feel that the long payas is a hid or mitzvah. So perhaps that is different. Just like the kohanim have their limitations, what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do, what's tzukah past for a kohen, it turns around that the people, the congregation, the tzibur has to honor the kohen. The pasuk says, "Vikidashto," you have to honor them. How do we honor them? First of all, we have to support them. They don't get a part of the land and they work on the land and make the crops or whatever, to grow the crops. The kohanim, they are all taken care of. We have to give them the matnas kuna. We have to give them the challah, the bikurim, the bechor behema, the pidyon ben. We have to support them in all these things, so their financial life should be easier, so they should be able to dedicate most of their life for holy things. Now, this dedication that you have for a kohen, and you have to honor him, there is a question that's discussed in Shuvas Harivash Siman Kuf Chav Daled. He asks, are you allowed to bury a kohen near other mason? In other words, is there a special place that should be, a kohen burial place should be nicer and better than everybody else? And the Rivash answers, there's no such a thing. And he says, obviously, Tumah doesn't exist at that moment. That it's the mitzvah of the Kidashtoi doesn't apply once the kohen passes away. Rabbi Shlomo Eger, in Shiloh Tzuvah, Rabbi Shlomo Eger, in the end of Yeridea, says, if there are two avelim, and they have to daven with the Amid, one of them is a kohen, does the kohen get first rights to daven for the Amid because he's davening for after his father who was a kohen? No. Once the kahuna, the person who was the kohen, is nifter, there's no more mitzvah vikidashta. Now, there are many interesting shilas that are discussed for a kohen. Lamashal, about a kohen. Is a kohen, we know that he's not allowed to become tameh. Is a kohen allowed to become a doctor? Because when you become a doctor, besides the fact that he's going to the hospital, which is a whole other discussion, there are a lot of shilas that in the hospital there are dead bodies, there are corpses there, and it could be in the same vicinity of the kohen, but that's a separate child. I want to talk about one specific area. If a kohen learns to become a doctor, so he has to do all these experiments, and doing these experiments, he will deal with things that are tameh. So there is a big debate in today's placing about this. Like Shlomo Garin, the chief rabbi of Israel, paskin that if he wants to do this, he should take a key and give it to his friend and tell the friend to touch a dead body with this key. And therefore the mafteach, the key, will have a din of avia v'isatuma. And when it has a din of avia v'isatuma, give it to the kohen. And the kohen will use this as his necklace. Once the kohen is anyways with the avia v'isatuma, then it's a shas atchak, he's allowed to become tamei from there on. However, Moshe Feinstein in Shalos Tzuvas Igros Moshe, Yeridea Gimel, Siman Kufnan Hay,